Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of three. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you're notified every week with my new podcast on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you haven't already, join my free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There's no downside. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you will be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey in addition to truly taking control of your health. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic you all are bugging me about, and it's probably the number one health issue. Matt Gallant is the CEO and co-founder of BiOptimizers and has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for multiple pro athletes, a self-defense instructor, and has over 15 years experience formulating supplements, including one for sleep. Welcome, Matt. How are you today?
I'm awesome. I'm excited. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite things in the world, which is how to get great sleep.
Because it affects everything. I tell people it doesn't matter what supplements you're taking, what food you're eating, what diet or exercise regimen you're doing. If you're not sleeping, then throw all the other stuff out the window. And before we came on, I mentioned that I truly believe God gives me a challenge for me to figure out so that I can then test things on myself and work through them. So I've always been a decent sleeper, but something happened last fall where my Oura ring was telling me that my sleep score was in the 60s and 70s, and I'm a straight A student, so you know that for me that was failure. And so I had to really dive deep and look into what I was doing wrong. And coincidentally, you came out with sleep breakthrough at the same time. So I said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm also going to cut out the sugar at night. Yes, I have some sugar and I'm not perfect. And then I started wearing an eye mask. I made sure that I was off my device, close to bedtime. I was trying all of these things. And now my sleep score is above a 93 every single night, typically 95 to 96. I'm kind of disappointed if it's a 92. So with that being said, why is sleep such an issue for people?
First of all, we're all genetically programmed to start aging, usually around 28. One of the major things that occurs, and some people happens faster, some people happens later, but it's a decrease in hormone production. And in the case of sleep, the main hormone is melatonin. So most people don't think of melatonin as a hormone because it's such a readily available supplement in most countries. But first of all, it is a registered drug that you need a prescription for in a lot of first world countries. So I think taking melatonin is a really serious thing that people need to consider. We can talk about how to use it because I think it has some applications. But I saw it firsthand with my dad. My dad's struggled to sleep the majority of his life. He's 72 now. And first of all, magnesium breakthrough was a complete game changer for him and my mom, which was my favorite testimonial ever. But as I got into genetics, I was working with my nutrigenomic expert. She showed me that I have bad genes for sleep. So I think some people have poor genetics for sleep, and I think these tend to be insomniacs. But I think all of us, as we get into our late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, there's a point where people are maybe barely or not producing any melatonin at all. When that happens, your prolactin cycle gets compromised, your ability to get deep sleep gets compromised. There's a lot of lifestyle reasons why the melatonin will decrease. The big one is light. So let's just get into light because there's a lot of free things everybody can do that will completely transform your sleep experience. And it really starts in the morning. We were talking before the show about, going outside and getting sun exposure in your eyes. And that's something I give credit to Dr. Andrew Huberman for really getting the message out there. And I've been doing it for the last few months. In terms of bang for the buck, return on that time, it's incredible. Like how I feel throughout the day. You get increased dopamine, increased serotonin, increased metabolism, and you're going to sleep better at night, right? Basically, you're telling your brain, this is the beginning of the day, right? You're programming the clock. So the second thing, and I think this is where most melatonin gets destroyed. So if your eyes are getting exposed to light, you will be destroying melatonin in real time, and it's very fast. So if you took, say, melatonin supplement, 2, 3, 4, 5 milligrams, which by the way are overdoses in melatonin. I'll save that for later. But what happens is the light is literally destroying this in near real time. So even a few seconds of exposure would wipe out any potential melatonin production. So what do most people do is, they're watching TV, they're on their computers, they got lights on, and obviously there's no real melatonin production happening. Then they go to bed. And the whole prolactin cycle is compromised, which is, again, where a lot of the anti-aging hormones are produced from growth hormone, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really critical part of the sleep cycle. The other critical part of the sleep cycle is REM. So REM tends to happen later in your sleep cycle, and you'll usually hit a couple of cycles. And that's where there's a lot of emotional processing. That's where there's a lot of neurotransmitter production. So in terms of your mood and how you feel, that's really where the magic is. And if somebody doesn't have REM for 3 or 4 days, I almost guarantee they're going to be in a bad mood.
Mm-hmm.
Getting enough REM is really critical. And to me, the day starts when you go to bed. And what I mean by that is you're really setting up the entire foundation for your experience of life when you're sleeping. Like if you have a great night's sleep compared to a good, or certainly compared to a bad, you just exponentially feel better. Like the best version of yourself is after 1 or 2 nights of great sleep. So I'll stop there, but I think that sleep is just one of the most powerful, critical things. And I've learned the hard way the cost of not getting great sleep.
So yeah, most people reach for melatonin. And this was something also that I had to talk to my son about last year. He was a freshman in college. He was not sleeping. His score was like in the 40s. He actually threw his Oura ring away because it was causing anxiety that he was not sleeping. And he said, "Mom, can I go get some melatonin?" And one fact that I told him, and I said, maybe short term, but I'm hearing that melatonin usage actually shrinks your testicles. Is that what you want? So, and for women, who knows what the female side effect is compared to the men, but it is not good long term. And like you're saying, people are high dosing. So with anything, if you're taking testosterone, your body's going to say, "Oh, I don't need to make any more because I'm getting it from somewhere else," or thyroid hormone, whatever it is, your body's going to shut down that production. One of the hacks that I incorporated last fall was if I got up to go to the bathroom, I don't turn the light on, because that, is my eyes now have gotten adjusted to find where I need to go with the little light, natural light that's there. And that has made a huge difference in my ability to fall back asleep. But with the melatonin, I want to dive into that a little more. When you're trying to improve REM sleep, why is melatonin a big no-no? And why is this such a big mistake?
Well, first of all, I think you hit one of the most critical pieces. So again, I've been formulating supplements since 2004. And, one of the main strategies is to try to get your body to produce the target molecule. That's always a superior strategy. And you gave the example of testosterone, which is a great one. I was on testosterone replacement therapy for 6 years. I've been off for a year. I've been able to reboot my hormones naturally. And what happens is your body will start fighting back. And the way it does that depends on the hormone. But first thing it does, it starts down regulating its receptors. What does that mean? It means that you need more and more and more of that molecule for it to work. Now, here's the shocker. Most people do not know this. And as we were getting into the literature studying, melatonin and how to use it and what the natural production is, most people have no clue how much the brain naturally produces. It's between 10 and 80 micrograms. So if you think about a 0.5 milligram dose of melatonin, that's 500 micrograms, which is already a mega dose. And what was great, I'm kind of have the perfect genetics to test melatonin. The reason is a lot of people have a genetic variant that will cause them to wake up 2 or 3 hours earlier because there's a spike in body temperature. And I know Tim Ferriss has talked about it. Andrew Huberman's talked about it. Like, most people that truly understand sleep science do not recommend using melatonin, except in a few very specific cases, which we can get into. But as I was playing around with dose, and here's the truth and an axiom with supplementation and drugs: the dose creates the effect. So 500 micrograms or 0.5 milligram would wake me up 3-4 hours later. So it never worked for me. And that forced me to start looking at other things. And just one more comment on melatonin and sleep research. Melatonin is very effective to get you to fall asleep, which is sleep latency, but it does not improve sleep. So when you look at the key metrics involved in sleep quality, which is obviously deep sleep and REM, it does not impact those things. It impacts how fast you fall asleep. And for some people, that's a struggle. So melatonin for me is, as a supplement, I typically don't recommend it, except one, when you're traveling. If you're traveling 2-3 time zones, you want to reset your clock. 2 nights is enough. You typically don't need a third to reset your clock. And you take melatonin for a couple of days in the morning, get the sunlight, big workout, big breakfast. That will help reset your clock, and you might avoid jet lag completely. Now, the other times I recommend it is if you want to wake up earlier. So again, I use the biological response that I get from melatonin as a way to hack my physiology when I'm going to get 5 hours or less of sleep. So for example, I was in a crazy trip to go see Dr. Andrew Huberman in New York and some other things a few weeks ago. And I was only getting 4.5 hours of sleep. So that night I took about 150 micrograms of melatonin, and I woke up feeling more refreshed. So it's a great hack that way. And, some nights, if you find yourself overstimulated, for me, maybe I watched the UFC and it's 2 a.m., I might be past my window, and we can get into cortisol response when you pass your optimal window, right? We can get into that in a little bit. But melatonin, again, should only be used maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week max. And we have created another formula that's not released called BiOptimizer. You'll be getting some soon, which increases REM significantly. And it has 18 micrograms per spray. Now, there's other stuff that boosts the REM, but it's a great formula, completely different than Sleep Breakthrough. But with Sleep Breakthrough, the strategy was, let's give the body all the building blocks that it needs. Okay. They're called precursors. Then let's give the body all the cofactors that it needs to convert those building blocks into melatonin. So magnesium is a phenomenal precursor to melatonin. It's a precursor to serotonin. And here's a pro tip: anything that increases serotonin will help your sleep. Serotonin is a precursor to melatonin. So that's why a lot of people report maybe 5-10 grams of carbs. People talk about honey or some other things, and I've tested that. It does typically will improve your sleep, like especially if I'm fasting 2 or 3 days. One of the things that happens when I do that is I sleep less and less. Like, probably the adrenaline response, the cortisol response are starting to change after a couple of days of fasting. And I just start sleeping less. What fixed that was about 5-10 grams, like half a cup of fruit does wonders for me. And again, some people like honey, but it doesn't really matter. It works. But magnesium's a great precursor. We have P5P, which is a bioactive form of vitamin B6. And that is a precursor to convert that magnesium into serotonin. As we got into minerals, and I co-formulated this with Mr. News, Mark Effinger, who's an absolute genius with formulations. One of the things he brought to the table is potassium. And I knew the benefits of potassium on a hydration level, but I never looked at the literature with sleep. And I found some really interesting research around odd mutant flies. And what they found was that sodium excites neurons and potassium quiets them down. So that made me realize that in the morning, it's a great strategy to get like salt in your water, which is something I've done for a long, long time. So you take a 2-liter jar, a 1-liter jar, put water, put about quarter of a teaspoon of Himalayan salt. I like putting potassium as well in there. And I just drink that throughout the day. And you're getting, again, the hydration, the trace minerals, and you're getting that boost on a neuron level from the sodium. But at night, the potassium helps quiet them down. But there's another big benefit to potassium, which is it will help minimize your trips to the bathroom during your sleep cycle. If you do enough potassium, you can essentially hold water better. And that's something I learned being on a ketogenic diet for almost 26, 27 years now. And, at some point I realized I was deficient in potassium. And when I added that, my body's been able to stay hydrated, because I've always drank 3-4 liters of water a day and put sodium in it. The potassium was the missing key. Then we have zinc orotate. Zinc actually helps relax your nervous system and increases REM. And that's basically the 4 minerals. We have magnesium, zinc, potassium, and the 4th one is the
taurine.
No, well, we have all the precursors as well.
Oh, P5P.
The calcium citrate is another one. And again, the calcium increases REM and helps transform tryptophan into serotonin, which is a precursor to melatonin. So we really load it with precursors. That was a big one. Let's talk about GABA, because GABA is the most interesting one in a lot of ways. So GABA is an incredible neurotransmitter. It's the molecule of chill. When you look at the data on insomniacs, they're about 30% deficient in GABA. So GABA certainly helps relax your nervous system, which is always critical for a great night's sleep. And we can get more into that. We tested a bunch of different GABAs, different forms. Valerian root, for an example, is a popular form, GABA. But what we settled with is pharma GABA from Mitsubishi. And it's incredibly strong. It's a very powerful GABA molecule. And getting the right dose took a while. And then we played with L-theanine, which has probably been my number one sleep supplement for the last 6-7 years. I've probably taken L-theanine, like 200 milligrams, for about 99% of evenings for the last 6-7 years, because it always works. It's an amino acid typically derived from green tea. And that's why a lot of people love drinking green tea compared to coffee, because the L-theanine helps stretch out the caffeine experience, smooths it out, and is just a really good calming amino acid. And I really wanted to get things that help you sleep better without causing drowsiness. L-theanine is one of them. We'll get into the other molecule in a second. But L-theanine and pharma GABA do something that's really special and important for a great night's sleep, which is that increases alpha brain waves. So our brains are always producing electricity. We produce delta, theta, alpha, gamma, and then you can get to sub delta and some different frequencies, but those are the main ones. And what happens is a lot of people have hyperactive beta brainwave activity, which causes them to become insomniacs. Like when you look at the brains of insomniacs, they have higher levels of beta brainwave activity. Same thing with people that suffer from anxiety. It's typically in the front of the brain. And again, I've spent about 8 weeks of my life with electrodes doing neurofeedback, and you can train those things. So when people really can't sleep, and again, there's people that have, it's considered a medical condition, so I have to be careful what I say here, but I typically recommend that, go look at neurofeedback. That can help really fix your brain and optimize your brain waves. Incredibly good thing to do. And however, in terms of supplements, alpha brain waves will increase with L-theanine and pharma-GABA. What that does is it requires your brain to grab the electricity from somewhere else, and typically will decrease your beta brain waves and helps prime you for a good night's sleep. Because your brain will go from beta, and then when there's a hypnagogic state where you start dreaming and your brain becomes more visual, but you're still aware of it, and then you pass out completely and you start, to go to the next stage of sleep. That's theta. And then if you get a great night's sleep, you will be spending about 90 minutes in delta wave sleep, which is the slowest brain waves that your brain essentially gets to. And then your brain will cycle back and forth. And in the morning, you'll go back into a theta brainwave state, and you're dreaming. And that's where there's a lot of REM being produced. So when you're kind of really aware of your dreams, when you really pump up REM, you'll tend to have more vivid dreams and more intense dreams. So, those are basically the sleep cycles. And then the final key molecule was glycine. And in my opinion, glycine is absolutely one of the most powerful amino acids that almost everyone's deficient in. Like the optimal dose of glycine is probably 10 to 20 grams a day. In Sleep Breakthrough, we have 3 grams. Now, what does glycine do for sleep? And again, we could do a whole podcast on glycine, but I'll keep it focused on sleep. The first thing it does, which is one of my favorite features, is if you get not enough sleep, you will feel far more refreshed the next day. It creates, again, enhances REM, enhances sleep, but doesn't cause drowsiness, very similar to L-theanine. And it lowers body temp. So body temp is another big component of great sleep. Your bedroom should basically be an absolute cave. You can't see your hand, and it's really cool. How cool? Typically between 65 to 70 Fahrenheit and 16 to 18 Celsius. That's an optimal sleep cold range. However, a lot of us, if you have a fast metabolism, maybe you're a man with a lot of muscle mass, you're a woman in menopause or premenopause, and you're getting these temperature spikes, you almost need a chili pad or sleep aid underneath the bed sheets, which will help keep your body cold or cool throughout your sleep cycles. And then in the morning, some of the newer versions will actually increase the temperature, which your body naturally does. So it kind of helps enhance that part of your sleep cycle, and you wake up feeling better. So temp is a huge piece. You want your head to be about 1 degree cooler than your body. But again, a lot of people will sweat under the bed sheets. I'm a big fan of the weighted blanket. I've been since I've been a kid. In Canada, grew up in brutal winters, and we would, we used to heat the house with fire. My father still does, but sometimes the fire went on and it gets really cool and cold. And I used to have 5-6 blankets on top of me. And I remember just feeling, man, I love this. So you can basically get that experience with weighted blankets. But again, you got to prevent your body from overheating. So those are all the different sleep molecules in Sleep Breakthrough. And we decided with a powder for a few reasons. It's a drink. The first reason be a lot of capsules. The second reason is people can control the dose, and some people report better sleep with 1 scoop, which is about 4 grams. Some people get better results with 2. I'm a 2 scooper myself. So again, play around with the dose, and you drink it about 1 hour before your target bedtime. And it's really important to at least dim the lights. Okay. And you can wear blue light blocking glasses. That's an option as well. It works. Or you dim the lights. So again, install dimmers if you don't want a complete darkness. Some other hacks I've heard is salt lamps. I think is a really good one. You can kind of a salt lamp with a dimmer. So it really, blocks a lot of the light blast, but will still create kind of a glowing effect. There's some child lights that you can get and then replace the bulb with a red bulb. So red bulbs is another strategy. So red bulbs, dimming the lights really, really low, or wearing blue light blocking glasses is your 3 main options. And then you'll feel Sleep Breakthrough hit you about 30 minutes. And typically 45 minutes later, you kind of want to be in bed or near bed. Now, a lot of people, and it's something I used to hear, and I wasn't sure if it was true because I didn't understand the science, but I've heard since I'm a kid that like 1 hour of sleep before midnight is worth 2 hours. Is
Mhm.
that true? So there is truth to that saying. And the reason is all of us have an optimal sleep time. And the way I like to frame it for people is have a target bedtime in your mind, like pick a time. And it doesn't need to be, 8 a.m., 8 p.m., 10 p.m., or midnight. I do believe in chronotypes. There's a great book called The Power of When, and you can do a free quiz. If you do just Google Power of When quiz, you can do it. And some people tend to be morning people. Some people tend to be night people. Some people are in the middle. Then there's insomniacs, which he calls dolphins. So there is, I think, an optimal sleep time based on your circadian rhythm and probably based on your genetics. And you can change that. Okay. And one of the ways you change that is the light exposure in the morning. Because that, again, if you wake up an hour earlier and blast your eyes with sunlight, you're going to start changing that programming. And I've done that before. However, let's say your target bedtime and optimal bedtime is midnight. You'll typically start yawning around 11:15, like about an hour, 45 minutes before. You should start seeing signals that it's time to go to bed. And what's the signal? Well, yawning, just start feeling maybe a little more tired. Now, some people, and I've been guilty of this the majority of my life, can power through that and actually almost get hooked on the cortisol response that'll happen typically about 15, 30, 45 minutes after your target optimal bedtime. And what does that do? Well, that gives you that second win and essentially destroys the quality of that night's sleep. It will destroy your deep sleep. So that deep sleep, which is again typically very early, to get that you essentially need to be on time. And the key there is consistency, right? Like if you're one night at 10, the other night at midnight, the other night at 1, you go back to 10, your body doesn't have a chance to truly program in that circadian rhythm and then get that whole cascade that happens when you go to bed on time. So my suggestion is like be in your bed about 15 minutes before your target optimal bedtime, and you should be asleep by the time that hits. So to recap, like 2 hours before bed is well, let me rewind. 3-4 hours before bed, no food. Like food, I've been tracking my sleep. I had the Zio, which was a predecessor to Oring. I've used the Dream, which is the only reliable way to get accurate deep and sleep data, is to use an EEG headset. Now, the Oura Ring is a great device. I've owned all versions, and it's great to give you kind of the total amount of time of deep and REM, but it's very poor at differentiating because it's just using these secondary metrics.
Hmm.
So it's about 60% accurate in terms of assessing the deep and REM. All the other metrics, the readiness data, the nervous system data, the heart rate, those are very accurate. So I'm a big fan of the readiness score, and the sleep score is good, but again, it can be significantly off. And I've had the Dream and the Aura and compared, and I've talked to other people and I've talked to neuroscientists. The general consensus, it's about 60% accurate. But 4 hours, if you eat, let's say right before bed, it will destroy your sleep. Guaranteed. Like I've never seen that night not wipe out sleep quality. And before I started optimizing my sleep, I was getting 0 to 15 minutes of deep sleep for years. My testosterone crashed, body fat record high in a DEXA scan. And I just felt horrible waking up in the morning. So that's why I kind of became a sleep fanatic about 7-8 years ago. Spent about 45 grand on sleep optimization, from custom made mattresses to sleeping in Faraday cages to every PEMF device. And I can say that I think the main things is blackout room, cold, and then feeding your body all of the key molecules that it needs for a great night's sleep. All the things we talked about. So anyways, I'll stop there. I know I was in a stream of consciousness there, but those are the main things in my opinion.
So many things I want to touch on. Number one, all of the ingredients, when I saw the ingredient list, you can find those individual ingredients in my cabinet because they're amazing. GABA, and I believe not just for sleep, but just stress in general. Over the last 2 years, GABA has been a very important molecule to help with the nervous system, to help with stress. And also there's some evidence that GABA helps with recovering from the spike protein. So there's this relationship there. Theanine, huge fan of that one. P5P, huge fan of that because a lot of people can't methylate the B vitamins unless they're in that precursor form. And salt. Yes, there's a reason you wake up, and I have the accelerated ancient salt, and I tell people, put a little on your tongue, put it in your water during your workout. Your energy doesn't come from food. It comes from electrolytes and hydration at the cellular level. So then, and Matt, you don't know this story, but my son, elite athlete, national record holder and crew from high school, 15 years old, woke up at 2 a.m. to him pounding on the bathroom wall because his heart had stopped. And he was pounding then on his heart to get it going again. Fast forward to find out he's low in potassium and his electrolytes. And so he now takes magnesium breakthrough every day and other electrolytes as well to make sure he's covered. But the balance of the electrolytes are so important for the cortisol response, for the adrenal health, which then gets into making sure your cortisol has the right waves during the day versus night. So I wanted you to touch on that because so many people listening are wired and tired. They can't stay awake during the day, but they can't fall asleep at night. And it's cortisol, it's the stress, and everything's reversed. And that was also part of my issue that I had to get back to, okay, when is my set bedtime? And you just had a child. One thing that I did as a mom, my kids are all, 16 and older now, but I followed a book called Baby Wise that told me how to schedule their sleep and feeding. We as humans want to know prediction of when we're going to sleep and when we're going to eat. The body wants to know a schedule. So parenting tip number one, Matt, what you're talking about for you, you need to do for your child because they want to know that as well, right? But let's talk about cortisol.
Yeah, let's expand that to adrenaline, cortisol, noradrenaline, and really the model. My favorite framework is the nervous system, and that it's a spectrum from parasympathetic to sympathetic, and there's a lot of gradients along that. And I think one of the most powerful things I've done to improve my health and the quality of my life has been to understand my nervous system, understand how to modulate it, understand how to shift from one mode to the other throughout the day at the right times to avoid burnout. And that state that you talk about is an incredibly dangerous state. One of my very good friends, he was in his early 20s and got trapped. And traps are very accurate. And I've been trapped. And what I mean by trapped is you go so far, so deep into fight, flight, freeze, again, sympathetic response, and you stay there for a very long time. It can require intense shifts to get you out of there. Like there's this place where it's like your body doesn't want to get out and it destroys your sleep and you wake up completely exhausted. And then people get, you'll use stimulants typically, which typically does not help. So how do you get out of that? Well, in his case, just to wrap up his story, like all his biomarkers were crashing. Like when I say crashing, the doctors were panicking.
Mm.
So he started sleeping in a, tank the tanks where you get pressure and oxygen in, and that really helped him. He slept in that for 2 months. That's what it took to get him out of it. I've been in places where, I used to kind of hit that mode consistently at the end of each quarter because I would just redline. And then my way of getting out was going and getting a vacation for 9-10 days in nature. And nature is incredibly powerful. I would say for those of us that live in a city, and I'm one of them, I live in a penthouse. Um, you optimally want to spend about 3 days a month in nature, and it will reboot your nervous system. It will shift you out of sympathetic. It's very effective for that. But some of us, we have busy, intense lifestyles. We can't always do that. And that's where, molecules like magnesium, GABA, L-theanine can be great tools. And my suggestion is throughout the day, and there's some great data that just came out on this, like literally a few weeks ago. And what it showed was if people went from one Zoom call to the next, to the next, to the next, which I'm certainly guilty of often, what happens is there's accumulation and increase throughout the day of beta brainwave activity. All it takes, and that's not a good thing, there's that place where you're starting to really wear out your brain. And the answer is to take these mini breaks throughout the day. And, going outside for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, playing with your dog, doing rebounder, just changing the program for 5-10 minutes after each meeting and taking these micro breaks. And that's a strategy I've followed for a long time, but more for psychological reasons. But I never knew about the brain impact and what that does. And that'll wear you out.
Yeah.
It'll burn you out. Again, ask any neuroscientist and they'll tell you that if you're constantly in a state of elevated beta brainwave activity and you're not shifting down to alpha, which is what meditation does. So again, things like meditation, yoga, walking outside, playing with the dogs, like you want to have some time carved out where you're relaxing your brain, you're relaxing your nervous system. You're telling your brain, I'm safe, I'm calm, life is good. And I'll wrap that point up with this. My favorite, like the one that I would say is the most parasympathetic for me outside of sleep is a flow tank, a sensory deprivation tank.
Mm.
And you go into that, there's a point where, and typically for me it takes like 45 minutes where I just feel my nervous system go, just shuts down as much as, possible without passing out completely. And you just reboot. And I typically go for about 90 minutes. Incredible place for theta brainwave meditations. Your brain will hit that point. And it also helps you absorb magnesium. So, I've taken 6-7 hour flights to LA and then I go straight to Float Labs in Venice Beach. That's probably my favorite tank. He's been around for a long time. Crash. He built Joe Rogan's tanks. And I come out of the tank and I just feel completely rebooted even after a long voyage. So.
Well, it's funny you keep mentioning theta, and I always think about theta when you want to change something in your life. So 97% of your thoughts are the same as they were yesterday, but that theta state when you're waking up and when you're just about to fall asleep, I take advantage of that hypnotic state and think to myself, what am I changing today? How is my day going to be? I live it out, I manifest, I pray, and it's amazing how that shift will create a different response throughout my day. So that's just one of those tools where you can hack the theta state. And yes, the cortisol response, we get this wired and tired. You're not, as you're listening to Matt and me, you're getting the impression that it's not just one thing. It's all of these things. I mean, you talked about mattresses. We didn't even have time to get into sleep positions and and pressure points. We might need to have you come back on. But all of these things affect it. So I love the supplement. It has taken my sleep score from the 70s to the 90s, and you cannot lie to this stupid ring that I wanted to throw out the window when it was telling me that I was failing at my sleep. And that wasn't the only change I did, but I definitely felt a difference. I also love the taste of it. There's no denying that it has a nice sweet taste. It's all natural. And I put it with some of the other, I like to take my electrolytes at night as well. And so I mix those in. I take it with my magnesium breakthrough. And just a word on magnesium breakthrough. I always knew magnesium was important. I never carried a magnesium on my store because I always thought they were kind of the same. And I really didn't like any of them. They weren't special until I saw magnesium breakthrough. And that was the first that addressed the fact that there are multiple different types of magnesium that the body needs for different aspects of health. And it's one of my my best sellers outside of my own brand, but it is something I take at night. I take it with the sleep breakthrough. And I feel like it doesn't matter what is thrown at me during the day. I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to go to sleep. And it's amazing. So thank you, Matt, for bringing it to us. If you are interested in the sleep breakthrough, the link is at the show notes. Very soon, it will also be at Accelerated Health Products directly. So thanks again, Matt. And I wanted to touch on a few other hacks that I talked about and we touched on is I like the accelerated keto, where you are using the accelerated keto for those of you who are not necessarily in ketosis, but it puts you into that fat burning mode, helps you lower insulin resistance and blood sugar, and cleanse the liver on a daily basis. And we talked about that propensity to wake up in the middle of the night or at 3 and 4. If you're waking up at 3 and 4 in the morning, that might be a sign that you need a liver flush, right? And I talk about needing a liver flush 3 to 4 times a year. Well, the accelerated keto is going to start cleansing the liver on a daily basis. Then it's also kicking your cravings for the sugar and the carbs, which a lot of us know that we will go to bed and we'll do really well during the day. And then we get into the Ben and Jerry's and the pizza at night. And then that, of course, is going to disrupt your sleep. Well, when you do the accelerated keto in the morning, you see your sunlight, just like Matt was talking about. You start to regulate your insulin resistance, your blood sugar, and then also cleanse that liver. You support that with breaking your fast with wild animal protein and keeping it on a low carb diet. And then you're going to have stable, non-jittery energy throughout the day. So you abstain from the afternoon stimulants. You don't reach for that coffee or the monster drink. That is disrupting your sleep. Most people cannot metabolize caffeine fast enough so that they are actually creating a vicious cycle of needing the caffeine at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then they actually can't fall asleep or they wake up in the middle of the night. And this will also help with reducing your stress, which increases the GABA in the brain and calms it down, allowing you to relax, get out of that fight or flight state that a lot of you are suffering from, causing your insomnia in the first place. And then also the sugar and the carbs that you're eating are causing leaky gut, which is compromising the production of the relaxation and happy hormones in the gut, including dopamine, serotonin, and GABA. Now, the other thing that I did incorporate over the last couple months is Dream. This is also found at Accelerated Health Products. It's a spray, an aromatherapy spray, and it energizes, it's energized water, like scalar technology, like we do at the Accelerated Health Products. We use the scalar frequencies, but it also helps you unwind and relaxes the brain and gets you to sleep. Now, before I knew about Sleep Breakthrough, before I knew about Dream, I was using My Vital C, and this is not a vitamin C. It's a ESS60, and this is something that when people start taking it, they notice an improvement in their sleep, a boost in their immune system, and of course, it has anti-aging and anti-inflammatory effects. It's been shown to increase lifespan by 90%. And part of that is the induction of improved and restorative sleep. The other thing that I use is during the night, I use the stem cell patches, the aloe vera patch, which is known for skin and wrinkles and regenerating all the beautiful things that us women are worried about. But you put it on your forehead at night. It induces better sleep, increases mental clarity and focus, stimulates the frontal lobe and pineal gland activation, and helps regulate hormones. All of that is going to improve your sleep. So I put that one on my forehead, and then the Eon patch, which is anti-inflammatory, anti-stress, happy patch, I put that on the back of my neck. And this takes you out of fight or flight and puts you into that calm, rest, and digest state. And it induces relaxation for better sleep. And then I use the X39 patch, but I actually wear that during the day. Wearing it during the day stimulates your own body to regenerate or reset over 4,000 genes, but that's also going to help with better sleep at night. And then there is the silent night patch that helps regulate sleep through inducing your own body's melatonin production. So you're not taking a melatonin supplement, but it's encouraging your own body to help with that melatonin. And we talked about not eating before bedtime. This is really hard, even for me, essentially because I feel so great fasting during the day that I eat a lot at night. My meals are pretty big. But I do try to keep it to all whole food. I've cut out all processed food. I have to tell you, the sleep breakthrough drink is really kind of a nice treat at nighttime. It has a sweet taste, so it satisfies that sweetness that I need. It's not going to raise my blood sugar because it's sweetened with a little bit of stevia and some natural sweeteners, no sugar. But you don't want to eat before bedtime. I also use the accelerated detox powder. What that is doing is it's soaking up all the toxins that we are kicking out throughout the day. If you're using the accelerated silver to boost your immune system and help with your overall health, and you're using the accelerated iodine for energy, for the thyroid health, metabolism, fat burning. That's also detoxing your body of heavy metals and radiation. The accelerated cellular detox is going to soak all of those toxins up, help with the digestive system, makes your tummy feel good. A lot of people really feel uncomfortable going to bed because they have leaky gut if they're bloated or they're too full. This helps with that and helps with the inflammation, balancing the digestive tract, and helps put you to sleep. We didn't talk about this, but I know Matt has an opinion on sleeping on the right side. When you have fatty liver, which most people do, and you sleep on your left side, that liver puts weight on your heart, which could increase your heart rate and cause it to keep you awake. By sleeping on your right side, your heart is not pressured. And then we also talk about the salt and the importance of salt during the day. Salt and sleep are related. If your adrenals are burned out, you need more salt. There's a connection between adrenal health and salt. Salt is essential to stabilize your blood sugar. The accelerated ancient salt can actually lower a diabetic's blood sugar. It supports the adrenals, balances the overall electrolytes. It has over 62 minerals in it. It also is enhanced with scalar frequencies to detox your body or help with the detox symptoms that you might be getting. You can also use it if you're hangry during the day. Put it on your tongue for energy, for a workout. If you're an extreme athlete, I mean, my kids definitely use that accelerated ancient salt for their workouts. Really important. And then the liver flush, the accelerated liver flush that I take you through with the free group coaching and the Ascent Diet Cleanse, that is a game changer. If you're waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, it could be your liver being backed up, and doing that liver flush, which is super easy with the way I take you through it, you are not out of energy. So those are my other tips. Thanks for joining me today. And if I can help you with your health issues, you can contact me directly through the website, sarabantahealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you, and join the free group coaching with the Telegram link below, and you will be a part of a like-minded group. I support you on a daily basis, answer your questions, and we all learn from each other. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products, and across over 100 channels under Accelerated Health Radio and TV. You can use coupon WELCOME10 for 10% off site-wide, and join us every week, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. All of the supplements that we talked about today, including the sleep breakthrough, will soon be at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. You can also find the link through sarabantahealth.com. Thanks again for joining us here on Accelerated Health Radio, and have a great week.